The sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling window of my corner office, glinting off the glass towers of downtown New York. My phone buzzed insistently on the polished oak desk, a reminder of the hundreds of messages I ignored daily. I glanced down at it, a notification from someone I hadn't spoken to in over a decade. My fingers hovered, a flutter of nerves mixing with irony. I smoothed the silk blouse over my shoulders and tapped my pen against the desk. The room smelled faintly of lavender, my favorite candle burning quietly in the corner, a gift from my mentor years ago. People often saw only the calm exterior, the confident stride, the expensive tailored blazer, the smile that seemed effortless. But few knew the nights I spent staring at my laptop, wondering if anyone would ever take me seriously. The notification brought it all back. I remembered the laughter, the mocking glances when I unveiled my first prototype phone in college. "That little gadget will never compete with the big players," they'd said, smirking, tossing jokes like daggers. I clenched my jaw, feeling the old sting, but now I held the power they never imagined. Today, they would see the result of that sting. Today, they would realize that the girl they laughed at owns the company that everyone now relies on. I remember the cramped dorm room like it was yesterday. Posters peeling off the walls, the faint smell of instant noodles lingering in the corner. I was younger then, 19, full of ideas that seemed bigger than the world would allow. My classmates gathered around as I pulled out my prototype, a sleek, compact phone I had built from scratch, something I thought could change how people connected. "Seriously, Sam?" A guy named Derek snorted, leaning back in his chair. "That thing? No one's going to care. Stick to your homework." The room erupted in laughter. I felt the warmth drain from my face, a lump forming in my throat. My hands shook as I gripped the device, the smooth edges cold against my sweaty palms. It wasn't just Derek. Even some of my closest friends chuckled, calling it a gimmick, toy, dream that won't happen. I wanted to shrink, to vanish. The sting wasn't just about the words. It was the disbelief in their eyes, the certainty that I was destined to fail. That night, I sat alone on my tiny bed, staring at the prototype. My grandmother's words echoed in my mind. She had given me a small, silver pendant before I left for college. "Sam," she had said, "never let anyone measure your worth. Keep this close and remember, it's your vision that matters, not their laughter." I held that pendant now, its cool weight grounding me, whispering courage. The next morning, I made a decision. I would prove them wrong, but not with anger or petty revenge. I would build something real, something lasting. I would take the sting of mockery and transform it into fuel. Every late night, every failed experiment, every no I heard would push me closer to the woman I was meant to be. By the time I left that dorm room, I knew one thing. I was no longer the girl they could laugh at. I was beginning the journey to becoming someone they would have to respect, whether they wanted to or not. The early days were brutal. I rented a tiny studio apartment in Brooklyn, the kind with a leaky faucet and paper-thin walls. My prototype, once mocked, now sat on a cluttered desk surrounded by circuit boards, manuals, and endless cups of coffee. Nights blurred into mornings as I taught myself everything I hadn't known: coding, network infrastructure, business strategy. Every small victory felt monumental. The first line of code that actually worked, the first investor who didn't laugh at my pitch, the first prototype that connected flawlessly. I met people who believed in me. One was Claire Donovan, a seasoned engineer with decades in telecommunications. She had sharp eyes and a sharper mind, and for the first time, someone saw my ambition as potential, not naivety. "Sam," she said, handing me a stack of notes one evening, "you're onto something big. Don't let them define what you can do." Her belief became my lifeline. But even with support, the world was harsh. I faced rejection after rejection, investors who said my idea was too risky, colleagues who doubted my skills, and endless self-doubt that whispered I wasn't enough. There were nights when I cried over spreadsheets, questioning if all the struggle was worth it. I clutched my grandmother's pendant, its cool metal against my palm reminding me of her words. My vision mattered. Then came the first breakthrough. A mid-sized tech firm agreed to partner with me for a pilot program. The excitement was intoxicating, but I still kept my success hidden. My family thought I was working at some low-level tech consultancy. Friends only saw modest social media updates. I didn't need their approval anymore. I only needed to prove it to myself. Step by step, the company grew. I learned to negotiate contracts, oversee engineers, and understand the labyrinthine world of telecom infrastructure. The nights of doubt slowly gave way to confidence. Each milestone, each small triumph, fueled the quiet satisfaction that I was building something monumental, without the eyes of the mockers on me. By the time I signed the final papers acquiring my first full telecom license, I had transformed. The shy, doubted girl with shaky hands had become a woman capable of shaping an entire industry. And still, only a handful of people knew. The secret was sweet. It allowed me to grow without the weight of judgment, to build an empire quietly until the day I decided the world, and the people who mocked me, would finally see. The conference room was larger than my first apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the city skyline, and sleek modern art adorned the walls. The polished mahogany table gleamed. Under the recessed lighting, a subtle testament to years of hard work and perseverance. I watched them enter, the people who had once mocked my ideas, laughed at my toy phone, dismissed me as naive. Derek, the same one from college, and a few former classmates, now older, their casual confidence replaced by curiosity and, perhaps, apprehension. I stayed seated, calm, sipping my espresso, letting them take in the surroundings. Their eyes darted from the room to me, a flicker of uncertainty replacing the arrogance I remembered. "So, this is your company?" Derek asked, voice tight, unsure. I smiled, a mixture of pride and controlled amusement. "Yes," I said. "I'm Samantha Hayes, owner and CEO of Hayes Telecommunications." There was a pause so long it felt like it stretched across years. Derek's jaw tightened. A few of the others shifted uncomfortably in their seats. I let them absorb the truth. I wanted them to feel that same sting of disbelief they had given me all those years ago. I stood, walking slowly to the window, letting the soft sunlight highlight the curve of the city behind me. "You all remember my phone prototype, don't you? The one you laughed at?" I turned, letting my gaze meet each of theirs. "The one you called a toy? That toy is now the foundation of a company that connects millions every day. And the little girl you mocked, she's the woman standing in front of you." Their reactions were priceless. Derek looked pale, eyes wide, swallowing hard. Another, someone who had once offered a helpful sneer, fumbled with words, unable to meet my eyes. I allowed a beat of silence. Let the magnitude sink in. I gestured to the screens along the walls, displaying live network traffic and analytics dashboards. Every message, every call, every connection you take for granted, it flows through the network my team built. And yes, that includes the little company you dismissed so casually. I own it. All of it. I could see the guilt, the shame, the shock. Their laughter had disappeared, replaced by realization. Some tried to mask it with forced smiles, but I knew the truth. They were witnessing the result of years of perseverance, of nights spent learning and building, of refusing to let mockery define me. "Do you understand now?" I asked softly, but firmly. "The girl you mocked isn't asking for your approval. I've already achieved what you doubted. And I did it without needing to prove myself to you until now." The room was silent, heavy with tension and awe. For the first time, the balance of power had shifted. I felt no joy in their discomfort, only the quiet satisfaction of vindication. This was my moment, my victory, not over them, but over the years of self-doubt and ridicule I had once carried. I leaned back in my chair, letting the room settle into quiet. The tension was thick, but I felt steady, grounded, a contrast to the whirlwind of emotions that had haunted me for years. They had expected confrontation, anger, maybe even petty revenge. Instead, I offered clarity and control. "Here's the thing," I began, voice calm but firm. "I'm not here to humiliate anyone. I'm here to show you that growth is possible, for me, for all of us, if you're willing to change. but it comes with conditions. Derek looked startled. Conditions? He asked, wary. Yes, I said. If you want to work with me, if you want to be part of anything meaningful, you need to respect certain rules. First, honesty. Own your mistakes. Own the times you doubted me or others. Apologies mean nothing if they aren't sincere. I paused, watching their faces. Some flinched. I continued. Second, ambition. Stop living in complacency. Pursue your passions with integrity, and don't let fear of failure hold you back. I gestured to the screens around the room, the data, the network, the empire built from my own determination. Third, humility. Understand that people's worth isn't measured by how small or large their first ideas are. Talent, effort, and perseverance matter more than early judgments. I could feel the weight of my words settling in. This wasn't about revenge. It was about realignment, about forcing them to confront their own patterns. I wanted them to grow, but only if they were ready. And finally, I added, picking up my grandmother's silver pendant from the desk and holding it in my hand, remember guidance when it's offered. I didn't have it at the start, but I learned from mentors and I thrived. Find the people who believe in you and let them shape your journey, not ridicule it. I placed the pendant back on the desk, letting it glint in the soft light. I'm not asking you to grovel. I'm asking you to reflect, to improve, and to act. If you can do that, we may have a future together, professionally or personally. If not, that's your choice. They sat in stunned silence. Some nodded slowly, others fidgeted, but I could sense the shift. The old dynamic, mockery and condescension, had been replaced. I had the upper hand, yes, but I wasn't cruel. I wanted transformation, not punishment. And in setting these conditions, I was reclaiming power, steering it toward growth, not vindictiveness. For the first time in years, I felt fully free. Free to define relationships and expectations on my terms. Free to let those who mattered stay close, and those who didn't drift away. And most importantly, free to stand tall in the woman I had become. Strong, confident, and unyielding. Weeks passed, and I watched quietly as the people from my past began to shift. Derek enrolled in a leadership course, something he had joked about dismissively before. Another former classmate started mentoring young engineers, embracing the humility I had demanded. Change wasn't instant, and it wasn't perfect, but it was real. I reflected on the journey that had brought me here. From that dorm room where laughter stung like knives, to the countless late nights filled with uncertainty, to the quiet victories that no one saw, every moment had built the woman I had become. I realized that the power I now held wasn't just in the company I owned or the success I had achieved, but in the resilience, focus, and integrity I carried within me. My grandmother's silver pendant rested on my desk, glinting in the morning light. I picked it up, running my fingers over its smooth surface, feeling the weight of her words, her belief, and her guidance. That little piece of metal had been a reminder, a symbol, a talisman of everything I fought for, my dreams, my self-respect, and my refusal to be defined by mockery. I walked through the office, greeting my team with warmth, each of them a testament to the quiet, tireless work that had gone into building this empire. The laughter I once heard in college had transformed into something different, genuine joy, collaboration, and shared ambition. I stood by the window, looking at the city skyline. The past no longer held power over me. It had only shaped me. I had faced the ridicule, endured the doubt, and emerged not just victorious, but whole. The girl who had once been dismissed, whose ideas had been laughed at, had become a woman whose vision connected millions and whose authority could not be questioned. And in that moment, I whispered to myself, a quiet affirmation of everything I had fought for. They laughed at my phone, but I built the world that answers to me. I smiled, knowing it wasn't revenge I had achieved. It was freedom, respect, and undeniable power. I had owned not just a company, but the story of my life, and no one could ever take that away.